And we don't want to spoil too much of it, but
Right.
it is a memorable role. I was very you get proud of it. But since we're talking about Nerdtastic and Ips and everything, isn't it
Right.
crazy that you're taking now you yourself have to bring this Ip to life, in the animated world, right?
Right.
And so Lily, I know that you knew this Ip way when it was a comic book. I know you only saw the first episode, but what was your impression? Like, when you first heard of the show? Were you excited? Were you worried? Like, what were your thoughts going in as you watched episode 1?
You kind of always worry whenever you hear about Filipino depictions on TV or media or anything, because there is
like
so few. Yeah, it's just like there is so few, and then it's always about accuracy, or is it going to be like perfect, or is it going to be like watchable or whatever. But like, I think watching the trailers made me very excited for it. Knowing the people that were involved was like, okay, these are legit people. This isn't like people in their garage making stuff, So, because like I've seen some projects like that, and it's just been like, all right, like
that's cute,
that's cool. But then also it's just like, do they have the love for it? And sometimes we get people creating like stuff in our name and like using culture behind it, and then not really being like, not loving that culture, not being part of that culture, and understanding the nuances and the different small things. So when I like, first you look at the credit list, you're like, oh, who's producing this thing? Okay. And then you like look at who's involved, and you're like, okay, it looks pretty legit. And then
not Michael Bay. Yay!
Thank goodness. Can you imagine all the lens flares?
All the lens flares.
But when I first saw it, it's almost like you get goosebumps. Like when I watched that first episode, and just seeing the trailer, you get like, like it's one of those things where, okay, I think I could tell a lot of people about this, and like, especially if it's like Netflix, it's kind of like, see, we could do cool stuff, and it's gonna be on like mainstream. There's
like some legitimacy there.
Yeah, we could fill in the independent hearts and then the mainstream hearts, and we could like we could cover all the bases. So I think that and it also, like, the word authenticity comes up, and it's just kind of like, from a bookstore standpoint, whenever you talk about authenticity and mythology, it's like, well, they're not creating a documentary, they're creating art. So you kind of would let them have that artistic, like, perspective on it, and like and be world creators. Because then if I'm too stuck on like, well, the Aswangs were this, and the Chanak is like that, like, they're not doing it, like, and then you're miserable and you can't enjoy anything. Like, you're kind of like pissed off all the time. It's like watching wrestling.
I get the same feeling. Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. I understand that, because like, I remember when MCU first came out, there were so many people that were like, oh, that's not how I remember Wolverine, or that's not how that's not MCU, but that's not how I remember Cap or Iron Man or Thor. And I was like, yeah, but dude, even in the comics, there's so many different, like, it's a multiverse. Like, you can't get hung up on that stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so much. Like, I know that the messaging of Trese, and also just the subject matter of Trese, will, like, it'll push through, like, whatever. It's going to be watchable. It's going to be, like, super exciting to tell your non-Filipino friends all the monsters that you knew growing up and everything. So I think, like, upon watching it, like, because I am finally on a second episode, but nice. I am enjoying it, like, and I can't put any, like, like, yeah, they could have done this, they could have done that, and they could have done a lot of stuff, but I like it for it. I like it for how it's being produced right now. It's like Castlevania, the first season was kind of like, oh, I thought it was going to be like a certain way, and then you get to the second season, it's like, ooh, it got a little
right.
That's what I was thinking more like. So but it's like, there are some things like
well, I'll tell you that just even the fact that if you look who was working on it, as we were getting to the trailer, I know there's a Filipino American cast, and then there's also the Filipino cast, which was cool. It was like an all-star on both sides, right? And but also I think the fact that I saw that it was going to be directed or showrun by Jay Oliva, you know, and he's very well known. He did some DC animated films. He did
Justice League Dark, dude.
Marvel films also for Lionsgate.